Welcome back to Sports Radio 810 WHB's pre-race show here at Kansas Speedway for the STP 400. Joining us now is a good friend of the RacinBoys, Marty Smith. Marty, how you been doing, man?
I am fantastic. It's good to be back in Kansas, gentlemen, hanging out.
Yeah.
I did get a free
chip
for the casino that is $5, and
now, will you go above the $5? Will you reach into the old pocket and pull out a few Benjis yourself if you have to?
No.
I like your style.
No, I won't. Johnson and I, during the banquet, of course, the NASCAR banquet is now in Las Vegas.
Which is a big hit with all the drivers, by the way.
It is indeed.
Right.
Saw a guy lose $1.5 million.
No way.
Craziest thing.
Not a NASCAR guy.
No, it wasn't a NASCAR guy.
Not a NASCAR guy.
This guy was coming unglued, which
I don't blame him. I think I would be the same way.
Listen, that will make anybody come unglued, but he's the guy that has to blame himself if he's willing to step up there and keep throwing it at
Listen,
him. Right?
Forget 1.5. If I lost 5, I come unglued.
No, I'm saying
much less 1.5 large.
I'm the same way. All right, let's get into today's race. A.J. Allmendinger takes the 22 car and gets his first pole for the Penske organization. I'm not surprised by that. Are you?
Not at all. He's always been really fast, and he had a lot of speed towards the end of 2011 with in the 43 car with Richard Petty Motorsports. And I just expected him to be really fast in the 22. He's done that, but he said himself after he won that pole that they really need to learn how to put it all together in race conditions. And that comes with time and communication. His crew chief, Todd Gordon, is a brand-new crew chief in the Cup Series. A.J., of course, moves to Penske for the first time, so it's a new union. And it really does take a while.
Were some people – I think I was a little bit, and maybe you weren't, but I was a little surprised by the hire of A.J. Allmendinger, not because of his talent, just because of the availability of other drivers out there. Were you surprised by it?
No. You had – I forget who all was on the market, but I know Vickers was out there.
He kind of hurt his situation at
the marquee guy, I think, at that time. But, AJ's a former open-wheel guy, and I'm not surprised that Roger tabbed him because there was always that speed. You can't teach it. Drivers are fast or they're not, and he is. No matter what he drove, he was fast. So I'm sure Roger saw a lot of potential there, and I think the guy can – I think they have a lot of potential. I do, because they have great stuff there. I was just there this week. I did a question and answer thing for the Penske people in front of – they had a big sponsor function, and all their partners were there. And it was Brad Keselowski, Will Power, Briscoe, and Sam Hornish. And they were discussing all these different things, and it's you could eat off the floor in that joint. It's cleaner than the plates we're eating off of out here, man.
Yeah.
They do everything first class. And I think that I actually asked AJ that in the pole winner press conference. What's it like? What has this taught you to be in that type of equipment? How has it changed your perspective? And he said something I found very poignant. For me, it's about patience. I put the pressure on myself because I know they're used to winning and used to running up front and getting poles and wins. So it's on me. And I think he has the talent. So, no, it wasn't that surprising to me.
How big a deal was it to Roger Penske to bring a guy in with a good attitude after that last
Huge.
experience? Yeah.
Everything.
I mean, that was everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
Kurt Busch has more talent than 99% of the guys out there wheeling that thing. But in this day and time, there's so much more involved than that.
Yeah.
And you can't lose your mind. You just can't come unglued like that.
Right.
Well, A.J. Allmendinger, the kind of person that he is, would lend itself well to inspiring his crew to work hard for him and do everything. He's a real likable guy. How much does that help him? Because he already knows how to win races at a high level, running the Indy cars. But that's really got to carry him a long way, just the kind of guy he is.
Team morale.
And I think he sees the potential, too. I think that kind of plays into all that. He sees what they can do for him, and therefore he is more apt to engage in what he can do for them. And it's working right now. I think they're building some good cohesion.
a breath of fresh air, I'm sure, for everybody at Penske, including the crew, because they've all been browbeat a little bit by the former driver. I know that you were just texting Jimmy Johnson here a moment ago.
Talking about his lap.
And you said it was one of the great qualifying efforts that you've seen out of Jimmy Johnson. Even though he still qualified 15th, he just overdrove turn one.
Way too deep into one.
Yeah.
And he told me about 150 feet too far, which if you think about it, it's about three tractor trailers.
Right.
And he said that's where he got in trouble. But then he came back where I was so impressed. And it's impossible to transfer this to television. He came back on completely worn out, used up tires after that first lap and laid down a fantastic lap. I just marvel at the guy's talent. And he's another one of those guys I was talking about, Kurt's talent. Johnson's way up there at the top of that list, too.
There's no doubt about that. And I think one of the hardest things for new drivers, because I dabbled a little bit in ARCA and drove myself, and I think for me, and I think it is for any new driver that gets into these heavy cars on these speedways with lack of experience, is overdriving into the corner. Mm-hmm. You always hear these drivers talking about backing up the corner, roll out until you can go flat. And it, as a short track racer, a lot of guys that come up through, 25 lap features or what have you, short stints. It is really hard for them to get adjusted to that, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And one of the guys,
because they want to be Superman.
One of the guys that really took a while to learn that was Biffle, because Greg just drives his ass off. I mean, that guy, he only knows one speed, and that is full bore. Mm-hmm. And it took Greg a while to learn that lesson, and he's really done well with it now. But backing up the corners, it's so important, because you're right, the first guy back to the gas is getting the power down the quickest. Mm-hmm. And in order to do that, you got to roll out of the corner. And I don't want to get off on too big a tangent, but that was one of the things. I had a great conversation with Mike Beam, who is kind of running Kyle Busch Motorsports for Kyle right now with that 54 Monster car. I was talking to him at Texas about Kurt Busch, because Kurt was driving that car for the first time. And he said that was very difficult for Kurt to get through his head, because Kurt doesn't have very many nationwide starts. Mm-hmm. He's got a ton of cup starts, but in the nationwide series, you're basically flat. Right. There really is no backing out. Right. So it's a whole new way of learning how to drive. Mm-hmm. And when those guys come from nationwide, where they're used to being flat, so it's kind of vice versa there. But it is a difficult challenge.
And really the truck drivers, too, as well, because those trucks are more forgiving when you bury them off into the corner.
Well, you get loose in a truck, you got a whole building of,
sideboard.
Side force, right.
Yeah, right.
Marty Smith joining us from ESPN. And one other big story that could happen this weekend, of course, we've known for quite a while that Hendrick Motorsports still looking for that 200th win.
Are they really?
It seems to be.
Leave the hats at home, by the way.
It seems to be so hard to get. Has this been such a tough thing right now that it's become a little bit of a distraction for Hendrick trying to get that 200th?
They need it. And here's a ridiculous stat for you guys. They haven't won since we were here in Kansas last fall. Johnson's win here was the last one. That's 13 races ago. That is the longest winless streak for Hendrick Motorsports in a decade.
Wow.
Is that
really
crazy?
In a decade.
Yeah.
13
only 13 races. They want to win bad. And each one of those drivers and teams wants to get Mr. Hendrick that 200th. Terribly. A distraction, no, because they're all so fast. Every single one of those teams has speed. Casey Kane, Jeff Gordon have terrible luck. I mean, Jeff had Martinsville 1. Jimmy had Texas 1. So they're there. It's just a matter of getting it done.
I've never seen Rick Hendricks so emotionally wrought after races as we've seen the last couple of weeks at Martinsville. I mean, he just
well, you got to think about Martinsville's a little different deal, too, for Rick. Because,
no doubt.
With all he got his first wins there, the plane crash, all that stuff, it would have been extremely emotional for him to get 200 there.
Have the other teams caught up with Hendrick?
And he had the opportunity twice, if you think about it, because Jimmy Johnson was leading Martinsville last fall when all that, and then there was the caution that let Tony Stewart get the outside line and win, and then
Martinsville racing deal,
baby.
That's what I say, racing deal.
Oh no, there's no doubt.
That's a reflection of just a bunch of new tires behind a couple guys that don't have new tires.
Anybody that blames Clint Boyer for that wreck is crazy, because Clint was the first guy on new tires, and he smelled a win. He did what he's supposed to do, and if you watch the replay, Newman too. Newman's on new tires. He wants to go win a race, man, and he got in the back of the 15. The 15 took out the front, and Newman wins. But Anyway, that's a tangent. Forgive me.
Yeah, well, and I agree with you. But we're Boyer guys. I mean, Clint drove for me, and so I have a personal relationship for him. Let's kind of touch on the season so far. This whole thing about fewer cautions. 23 fewer cautions this year than last year at this point. What would you contribute that to? Because nobody can give me a great answer on that.
Great driving.
Yeah.
I answered a question in my column about this. If you really think about it, 200-plus green flag laps at Texas straight is nuts. But you have to think about it contextually. Think how many unbelievable saves there probably were during that 200-plus laps, how many close calls that maybe typically would be a wreck. The tires are holding up forever, and the drivers are fantastic. And I don't think there's anything specific that you could possibly pinpoint as to why that's happening, other than these guys can wheel it.
Yeah. Are guys you have personal relationship with a lot of these guys, so I'm curious to know what they say behind the scene. I know there's a lot of this in the public eye about the tires and this and that. Are the drivers frustrated that the tires don't fall off more?
No, I don't think so. Frustrated, just not. I don't know, man. I don't see a whole lot of
strong. Frustrated?
Yeah, I don't see a whole lot of frustration. It's mentioned, but I don't. It seems like every single weekend Dale Jr. says something about the tire, and so he is extremely dialed on what he thinks that feel should be. But I don't know that frustrated is right, but it's one of those components. If it's one of the most important components to what we do out here.
Ideally, though, wouldn't you want those tires to give up with about 2 gallons of fuel left? That way, it comes at the start of the run. All the drivers that can drive a car, they've got a lot of grip. We know that, but it separates the men from the boys, and they're all great drivers.
I understand what you're saying, but you got to think about the politics involved. Goodyear's going to make a tire that holds up because they don't want to be blamed when they blow. And they got thrown for a hell of a loop with the new car. So there's just so many more variables involved than just, that driver's frustrated.
Right.
NASCAR decided we're going to put in this car tomorrow. Goodyear, you deal with it. You figure it out. You get us a tire that can hold up. We go to Indy and all hell broke loose. We couldn't do 10 lap runs. So as soon as Indy happened, Goodyear said, okay, the hell with this. We're going to build durable tires. We're not going to be drugged through the mud like that again. And I don't blame them.
Yeah.
So they do, you talk to drivers, they feel like Goodyear does a fantastic job for the field on which they're asked to play.
Dale Jr., big story this year. What a season he's had so far. 5 top 10s in the first 7 races this year. He's running up towards the front. Qualified well here at Kansas Speedway. Is Dale Jr. back, or is he back until he wins a race?
He's way more than back. He's relevant. He's fast. He's third in points. You could say second in points, but Matt kind of gets that slot because he won the 500. They have the same amount of points. He's back, and yes, he's going to win. And he's been infused with confidence that I haven't seen since, a long time. A long time ago.
I think that's a reflection of his statement yesterday, and I think every driver should think like that.
I'm the best.
I'm the best. I can outdrive anybody out here.
And he wasn't kidding. That's the way he feels, and that's the way. You're right. That's the way you have to feel if you're going to be an elite.
But he hadn't felt that way in the last couple of years, has he?
He hasn't been so vocal.
Okay.
He hasn't been so openly willing to just say it like that. And I get asked a lot why we cover him so much. And because it's like, the fact of the matter is this is a guy who hasn't won in 4 years, and he drives for NASCAR's resident powerhouse. So, therefore, his stint there has been a disappointment.
And his name is Earnhardt.
Right. The reason that we cover him so much is because he is wildly popular and amazingly engaging. In a world that is so calculated, he's willing to say it. And I appreciate that as a journalist because you appreciate that genuine willingness to be vulnerable sometimes that we don't see out here a lot. Everybody's so calculated, man.
I was going to say about Dale Jr., he's soft-spoken and he's kind of laid back with his words, but I find him engaging and very intelligent.
Dude, he's super smart.
That guy is all you got to do is sit down and talk to him for a few minutes, and you realize that, so many people, they talk about that Southern drawl, and they make it think that, these guys aren't as smart as,
That's ridiculous. I have a Southern drawl. I'm a pretty damn smart guy.
Yeah.
But you've heard that, right?
Oh, of course I have.
So
Especially
what I'm
in
saying
my
is
line of work.
a lot of people say that about Junior, because of the way he just goes about speaking. But I find him very intelligent every time I talk.
You know what else is very one thing about him that I really appreciate? You can tell he takes a moment to think about what he's going to say. He doesn't just
Pop off.
fly off.
Yeah.
He thinks about your question, and he gives you an honest answer. And I won't apologize for covering that because I think it's awesome.
Yeah. All right.
Steve Lotart's been a big influence on him. hasn't he?
Undoubtedly. I mean, he's the guy. Stevie's selflessness and willingness to make sure that Junior knows how much the team, crew chief, owner, everybody involved in that team appreciates Dale's effort and knows that he's a great driver. That matters to Dale. And that's one of the reasons that he's been pumped full of this confidence that we're now seeing manifested both on the racetrack. Look, there was, what race was it? I don't remember. Vegas. I want to say Vegas. He was the leader. Remember he led all those laps at Vegas? He was the race leader, and there was a caution. And on the restart, he chose the high side, and the 29 was on the bottom. And Junior drove that thing so hard into turn one. I said at the time, I can't recall the last time I saw him that aggressive. And that told me a lot. Yeah, the guy's confident, man.
Steve Letarte, there might not have been a better guy suited for this job because you just think about the pressure that he had on himself when he went to Jeff Gordon. I mean, there was a tremendous amount of pressure. So now going over to Junior, and with Junior Nation out there, and everybody wanting to see Junior win a race so bad, is there a better guy that was suited for that
No.
job? Because he's dealt with this kind of high pressure. Not that any of them don't deal with it. But
It also is his ability to see the broad scope of the context of the team. He knows what every guy needs, and that's a very, very unique talent to know how to push the right button for the driver, the crew, et cetera, et cetera. And Stevie has this amazing ability to do that.
Recognize personalities.
Great guy, too.
Yeah.
I'm happy for him that they're doing well.
That's what it's about really in that crew chief position now is being
Delegation.
a people person, right?
Yep, delegation, man.
Good friend of mine. First race he ever crew chief was for me in my ARCA car. Trent Owens.
Yeah.
I got to ask you about that. That's a pretty big announcement. I know it's only a one-race deal, but still for him to get a chance to go over there with Turner and do this deal with Bill Elliott at Daytona, pretty cool.
Well, Trent's had a lot of great drivers here in the last couple years. Villeneuve, Vickers. Now he's getting Awesome Bill from Dawsonville. It's great. And BV always spoke really, really highly of Trent's approach. So good for him.
You talk about people skills. The guy's got it.
Yeah.
That's what he's got going. Okay, real quick, before we let you go, what do you expect today here at Kansas Speedway, STP 400? I got to feel, even though Jimmy Johnson started way back in the back like that, he's got to be maybe the favorite to win. You look at what the speed sheet showed in qualifying. In practice, he was at the top of the sheet, had a bad lap. Give us a rundown on what you think is going to happen here today.
Roush is going to be really fast. The 48 will win the race. I expect for the 5 to be very fast as well. 24 will be great. He's always good here. So I look for a lot out of the Roush camp and the Hendrick camp today.
Yeah. All right, man. Thanks for being part of the show.
You got it. Thank you guys for having me.
All right, that's Marty Smith from ESPN. We'll be back with more live coverage from the pre-race show here at the STP 400 at Kansas Speedway.